Imagine waking up tomorrow, looking out your window and realizing a foreign country has built a military base right down the highway from your hometown. You didn't vote for it, and your local leaders didn't ask for it. Suddenly, there are foreign soldiers shopping at your grocery store. Fighter jets are rattling your windows at all hours. There are warships carrying nuclear weapons anchored right in your harbor. Right now, the United States maintains that exact presence in over 80 countries around the world. 750 military bases span every continent on Earth, except Antarctica. No other nation in history has projected armed strength across this much physical geography. The Roman Empire didn't do it. The British Empire didn't do it. Even at the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union never had a footprint this vast. Why does one single country need armed soldiers stationed everywhere on Earth? We need to look at what this invisible web of steel and concrete actually does. This system began in 1945. World War II had just ended, and the old map of power was physically broken. Europe and Japan were in ruins. Only two major powers walked out of the rubble, the United States and the Soviet Union. Faced with a new rival, the United States made a decision that would last for decades. Instead of bringing its soldiers back home across the ocean, it kept them stationed in Europe and Asia, parked directly on the borders of where the Soviets might try to expand. The military calls this forward presence. The logic is straightforward. If your troops and equipment are already sitting in Germany or Japan, you can respond to a regional crisis in a matter of hours, rather than taking grueling weeks to slowly sail the entire military force across the Atlantic or the Pacific Oceans. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the U.S. didn't pack up. Instead, it expanded. New bases opened in the Middle East and pushed further into Asia, making permanent global readiness the foundation of the modern world. A huge part of this expansion comes down to the economy. The entire global system, and the value of the US dollar itself, runs on the steady, predictable movement of oil and manufactured goods across the oceans. But that movement is fragile. Almost all of these giant ships must squeeze through a few narrow, easily blocked bodies of water. We saw how much damage one stuck ship could do in the Suez Canal. Look at these vital geographic bottlenecks. You have the Suez Canal in Egypt, the Strait of Hormuz in the Middle East, and the Strait of Malacca in Southeast Asia. If you control these tight passageways, you control the plumbing of global trade. And if you look right next to every single one of those crucial points, you'll find American military bases. By physically guarding the lanes that keep the oil pumping and the parbo moving, Washington secures the confidence required for a stable global economy. The physical placement of troops directly supports American financial power. While it's easy to assume the U.S. is forcing its way in, the reality is that many foreign governments specifically ask the American military to stay. In fact, countries like Japan and Germany pay billions of dollars every year to help cover the cost of keeping American forces on their soil. They pay this because an American base functions as a massive security system. If a small nation has U.S. troops inside its borders, any rival neighbor knows that an attack on that country brings them into a direct conflict with the United States. This is power projection. A base is a physical message. It tells anyone watching that America is paying attention, and if a line is crossed, they can launch a devastating counterattack before the enemy even finishes breakfast. This exchange, where America provides global security in return for widespread compliance, is the mechanical foundation of the rules-based international order. But living next to a global military machine creates deep friction for the people on the ground. For the citizens hosting these bases, the daily reality involves enormous tracts of local land being fenced off. It means severe noise from military aircraft, environmental damage, and tension from off-duty soldiers living alongside local civilians, like here in Okinawa, Japan. Because of this disruption, local populations have spent decades protesting in the streets and lobbying their leaders to evict American bases from their neighborhoods. Then there is the cost to American taxpayers. Keeping hundreds of thousands of troops on foreign soil drains roughly $150 billion every year, money that is diverted from domestic schools, roads, and hospitals. Critics look at that budget and see an expensive entanglement in foreign conflicts. Supporters look at the same numbers and argue that paying for order now is cheaper than paying for global chaos later. Now, after decades of dominance, America is facing a serious rival. China has been studying the US playbook. Beijing is now building its own physical footprint. They recently opened their first overseas military base in Africa, and they are constructing permanent naval infrastructure across the South China Sea. Unlike the Soviet Union, China possesses the manufacturing and economic power required to sustain a global military challenge for generations. The United States spent 80 years and trillions of dollars building an architecture of bases that polices trade and protects allies, even as it alienates locals and drains the treasury. The defining question of the 21st century is no longer if this American-built global network will shift, but what the world looks like when it does.